I am so excited to be here with you today. And I just came out of a beautiful facilitator weekend for my breathwork facilitator training that I'm in. And one of the things that we did there was share our story. And then it got me thinking, I've shared elements of my story here, but I don't know if I've ever fully unraveled it with you. And I was just so excited to be like, yes, let's fucking dive into it. Because if you're new here, or maybe you've even been here for a little while, you see me all the time, right? I'm very visible in the world. And, I've created a multiple six-figure brand. I serve people all over the world. I live a beautiful, brilliant life. And I also think it's so important that you see the behind the scenes of how I got to where I am today, what has allowed me to create this reality, and all the different experiences that have contributed to who the fuck I am now, right? Because one of the things that's so important to me, and one of the things that I really stand for, is a human-centric business. Everything that I do is with this foundation of creating from a human-centric place. And that means that I want you to really feel my humanity in all of this, right? Because I believe that we're rising eye to eye, heart to heart, soul to soul. And never do I want to be placed on a pedestal. And I really, really love being shoulder to shoulder with you, where we really are connected and growing together and learning together and thriving together. So this is going to be a beautiful and at some points probably emotional telling of my story. I'm going to start from childhood to now. And the reason I want to do this is I really want you to feel into the different pieces that have supported me becoming who I am today. And it's obviously important to note that there's so much that I wouldn't be able to fit into this. I have an hour planned for this experience with you, but there's probably things that I'll miss, but I'm going to really do my best to intentionally share the pieces that I think have really supported me in becoming who I am. So when I was a child, I'm the firstborn. I was the first grandbaby too. I was the first into the world in my family unit. And I was born into a time where my parents were quite young. They got pregnant with me when they were 23, had me by 24, and it was kind of like they were pushed into a corner to have me be brought into the world. My mom had endometriosis, and she was told, you're not going to be able to have babies if you don't start now. And so there was a pretty big time crunch to start having children. And my father has a lot of issues. He dealt with a very tumultuous childhood, which cultivated PTSD and alcoholism and other emotional, psychological, mental experiences and conditions that really affected me and my whole family. And when I was a kid, I experienced a lot of that feast and famine type of energy. My dad had inherited a lot of money, and so I was initially born into a pretty, well-off life. Parents built a house, but then things started to dissolve, right? My father and my mom, both had their part in whatever unfolded, I'm sure. There's lots that I don't know because, I was a kid. But I do know that from a very young age, I was abused. And it was really hard and really affected me. And simultaneously to this happening at my home life, and when I say abuse, it was from my father, I was also not safe at school. I was bullied pretty much right off the hop in school. And so I didn't feel safe at home, and I didn't feel safe at school. And it was around the time that I was about 6 years old that my parents decided to separate. And my dad went off to rehab, and my mom and my sisters and I moved into my grandparents' basement. And looking back at those times, like I developed a lot of PTSD from those experiences, right? Because all of that energy, those intense sensations got stuck in my small body. And, moving into my grandparents' place was like really beautiful in that I really started to like taste what it felt like to have a stable home life. My grandma and grandpa took on the role of like my second parents. And my grandpa was my best friend. Like, this man was the first man that ever showed me like real, true, stable love. And like every morning we lived in the basement, and he'd stand at the top of the stairs, and every morning he would be like, come give Grandpapa a hug. And we'd like race up the stairs to give him a hug goodbye. And those are like memories that I deeply cherish, because so much of my childhood is clouded by pain and suffering and trauma. And there were these moments in time where I like really felt this like deep embodied love. And so as I was a child, like I would bounce back between my mom and my dad's house on weekends. And, dad's house was always like a very intense experience for me and my sisters. And I have like a memory of my father like sitting us all down in this like basically empty basement apartment and putting on Pink Floyd and explaining every single Pink Floyd song to me. I was like maybe 8 years old. And, my father loves me, and he always has. But, when you're dealing with somebody who's deeply traumatized and has PTSD and had narcissistic tendencies, it's really hard for them to show love in the way that you need, right? And my father and I had a pretty continual tumultuous relationship when I was a kid. And all the while, again, I'm being bullied at school. So much so that I bounced around several different schools to try to escape it. And it got so bad that the police had to get involved. And as I continue telling you this, it'll all kind of wrap around toward the latter half of this story. So just bear with me, because there's a point to what I'm saying. And I have this very vivid memory of being I think I was in grade 6. And there was a huge group of girls that were bullying me like really badly. Like, this was again the time that the cops had to get involved, because it was like my life was being threatened. Like, they wanted to kill me. And I remember the school counselor like sat us all in a circle, and he had them, each girl that was bullying me, again, that wanted me to die, that literally had wanted, like, they were threatening my life. Every single one of them had to tell me why they didn't like me. So imagine being a child, right? I was in grade 6, being so bullied that I was afraid for my life, and having every single one of those people tell me why they didn't like me. And it broke me. I mean, I was in grade 6, and again, I was at the point where I was afraid for my life. And so much so that I wouldn't go outside for recess. I would stay in the library because I was being physically harmed. And so soon after that, after the cops were involved, I switched schools again. And, I'd like to say that it got better, but it didn't. I was struggling with depression and anxiety as a child, and self-harm. And I went to a Catholic school too, right? So for more context, I'm in this like Catholic school, and this was around the time that I got really into like emo and scene kid vibes, So I was like the only kid that had like black and pink hair and piercings, and my teachers like didn't like me. They thought I was a problem because, again, I'm in a Catholic school. I look different. I'm somehow like, not appropriate. I'm somehow like, bad, right? And I would get, kicked out of class for the way that I looked. I was just not like accepted. I went to like a pretty preppy school where like a lot of the people just like thought that I was the weirdo. And then, I at the same time, I like came out as bisexual, and like that was a whole thing too. So there was just so many layers and layers and layers. And so we ended up moving into our own house. So we ended up leaving my grandparents' basement. My mom got a house to rent for herself. It was our first home together in years. And it was like pain just kept following me. I'd have kids show up at my house to beat me up. Like a crowd of people with their camera ready to film it. I was being bullied online on MSN Messenger. I wanted to end my life. I was not okay. And then I found out my grandpa had cancer. And as I said before, my grandpa was like my best friend. He was like my rock. And when he died, like I was broken, and it just sent me over the edge. And I was 12. So it was just before I was going to go into high school. And at the same time, I stopped talking to my father. I cut ties with my father completely. And at the same time, I went into a complete shutdown mode. So I was just in this position where like I just didn't feel safe. I didn't want to be alive. And this is, I'm 30 now, yeah? So we're talking like many moons ago. Things weren't like they are now, like, mental well-being and the conversations around like mental, psychological health wasn't really a thing back then. People didn't really know how to deal with these conversations in the same way that they do now, right? And as I reflect on these periods, the thing that was really interesting, and the thing that you may have heard me talk about before in some way, shape, or form, is that like as a child, even in the midst of all of this all of these awful things that were happening, I knew from a very young age that my soul was here to help people. And I was a deeply psychic child. There's many memories where I would have visions of things happening, and then they would happen moments later. And I had a very open channel. But as I'm sharing this story, right, like as we go through these deep traumas and these wounds, right, parts of us get fragmented and we start to close off, right? And, I had glimpses of that part of me even like as I was having these really terrible experiences of being abused and bullied. Even when 9/11 happened, like this will just give you like a window into like my sweet little fucking childhood soul. Even when 9/11 happened, I immediately went home and was like, Mom, I need to do something to help the kids that lost parents. And my like sweet little baby angel child self raised 1,300 teddy bears for all the children that lost parents in 9/11. And we found a truck driver and we took them all the way to the Red Cross in New York City. And so I look back and I'm like, wow, like even in the midst of just like deep pain, I was still like really connected to that like heart space. And so again, flashback forward, I'm in high school and I'm fucking struggling big time. Like I'm exceptional at art. Like I would get, straight A's in art, but like everything else I like really struggled with. And, in hindsight, my ADHD developed from the trauma I had experienced as a child. But back then, these things weren't, again, very much talked about or known. So I didn't know I had ADHD in high school. And I also had untreated sleep apnea, which I'll talk a little bit about going forward. But anyways, I'm in high school, again, bullied badly. Not that bullying's ever not bad, but, when people like want you to like not be alive, it's pretty terrible. And so all the while I'm self-harming and no one knows. No one knows. I hid it very well. And I also ended up going on medication behind my mother's back because she only did what she knew best back then for me. And I, as a grown woman now, I understand that she was doing her best. But we had a pretty intense relationship when I was a teenager. Like we really butt heads, like a lot. And it was really hard for me at times. There were a lot of times where I just felt deeply misunderstood and that I just was not worthy of anything. And, I would really experience these deep, deep waves of depression. And I ended up starting to see like a therapist, and my therapist had basically said, I think it'd be a really good idea for you to tell your mom that you self-harm and that, because if it's in the shadows, it's in the shadows. Like we need to bring it to light. And I did tell her, and it was awful. It was a really bad experience because I don't think that she knew how to handle or hold the experience that I was having, because I think it really hurt her to feel like she was failing as a mom, even though she wasn't failing as a mother. I can appreciate in hindsight her experience of having a child that was that sick emotionally and psychologically and not well enough to feel stable in life. I can appreciate how difficult that would have been for her, and simultaneously holding the deep pain that I was in and knowing that I really needed a lot of love. And our relationship kind of just got worse. I was a very intense teenager and very rebellious and very much like, you can't tell me what to do kind of vibes, which, is part of my magic now. But I can see how, as a teenager, that would be really hard for your parent to deal with when you're not, respecting the rules. I'm just going to take a drink of my coffee real quick. And so it was around 16, turning 17 that I left home. And before I left home, there were a couple times where my mom tried to put me into the mental health ward in the hospital. And in hindsight, again, I can see how that was her way of trying to support me and help me. And yet at the time, it felt violating and really intense and awful. And so I just didn't want to be alive. And I didn't think I was going to make it to my 18th birthday, truly. I really didn't think that I would be alive right now. And when I left home, again, around 16, going on 17, I ended up moving in with a boy who ended up being my boyfriend, and it was a very abusive relationship. His mother was also an alcoholic, and it was just like, here I am trying to finish high school and don't even have like adequate food. I don't have any parental guidance. I'm just basically like, I felt alone. And it was around the time that I was 18 that, maybe it was like right before I was 18, like right before I finished high school, just around the time that I finished high school, I started to get better. It felt like my well-being was okay, like in a kind of like disassociated type of way. And back where I was from, I grew up in Sarnia, Ontario, and there were like a lot of children, teenagers, ending their life around this time that I was alive. Or not that I was alive, well, I was alive, but around this time of my life, rather. And it was like an epidemic. Like it was shocking how many people were leaving the earth. And at this point, I wasn't self-harming anymore. I was on antidepressants. Like I said, I was more stable at this point. And I started to interact with this Facebook group that was about like mental well-being. It was like a community group, and I like briefly shared my story on a post in there and was like, I'm here to let you know it gets better. And I got contacted by the local newspaper, and I shared my story. And then that article got posted in every major newspaper across Canada. And next thing I knew, I was on the Canadian news talking about mental health. I was interviewed on radio shows. I was, invited to go to cities to support people in their journey. And I'm like 18 at the time. And my family didn't like this at all. In part because the person who wrote the article actually fabricated some of my words and some of the stories that I told to make them sound a little bit more edgy and intense. And my mom, forgot to tell you, my mom and I had stopped talking too when I left home. We were just like, nope, done. Like I lost it. My mom, my sisters, like I was just like I was kind of exiled. It felt, at least. And so when my mom, my family saw this article and the words were a little bit twisted to make it sound more intense, they lost it on me, and they were just so embarrassed, and they thought I brought shame to the family. And it was just like, it just felt like no matter what I did, it just like I was fucking up. No matter what I did, I was like unwanted, I was unworthy, and it was just like, it kept breaking me. And I relapsed. I started self-harming again. And I ended up in the mental health hospital. It was like tail end of being 18. I might have even been 19. It's hard to know the timeline sometimes because a lot of my life, like I don't remember. Like there's huge chunks of my life I just do not remember at all. And that has been something I've been working through a lot, is like trying to kind of pick the puzzle pieces back up and anchor into my reality and how I got to where I am. And, I remember being in the mental health hospital, and I just like knew that like I needed to change my life. It was really scary being in there. Like it was not a nice place. There were bars on the windows. It was old as fuck. There were a wide range of different human beings in this space, as you can imagine. Like I was in a room with like 3 other people, all of which had different experiences than me. And it was fucking scary. It was terrifying. And I realized that, like, as I'm in this mental health hospital, like, I need to change my life. I need to do something differently. And so as time went forward, I ended up, I was like, 19, turning 20 at this point. And I was really mustering up the courage to leave my abusive relationship. Like, we were just not healthy for each other. I mean, we were dating in high school, outside of high school. Like, it was like we were young and it was bad. And he had a lot of mental health issues as well. And it was just not a good situation. So I was starting to really feel into, like, what was possible for me. And I started working at this place called Pita Pit in Sarnia, where I grew up. And I was like, started to eat really healthy food. And this was like one of the first times in my life that I was like eating really well. And I started working out, and it was like movement saved my life. It brought me out of this darkness, and it gave me the gift of feeling connected to my body. And that was so special because, like, one of the things I didn't mention is, like, as a child and a preteen, I was an athlete. Like, I was exceptional at field hockey. There was talk about me growing into playing for Team Canada. Like, I played travel field hockey, and I was really fucking good at it. But then I struggled with my mental well-being and everything. I just, like, totally stopped playing sports. And so anyways, going back to being around, like, tail end of 1920, movement literally saved my life. Like, it brought me out of this darkness and reconnected me with my beautiful vessel. And through movement and eating well, I started to lose weight. I was like 60 pounds heavier than I am now at the time. I was, again, really depressed, really down and out. And all of a sudden, I was starting to feel better. I was, losing body fat. I was having more energy. My depression started to fade. And next thing I knew, I was like, I don't need to be on antidepressants anymore. And I left my abusive relationship, and I moved into a girlfriend's house and slept on her couch. And, it was one of the first times in my life that I felt free finally. And I felt like I could see myself, and I was being seen by others. And that was also around the time that, like, my spiritual awakening happened. And I was starting to reconnect with this intuitive, psychic part of me, and to feel connected to something greater than myself. Because, again, from age 12 forward, like, I left the Catholic Church. I became, like, full-blown atheist because I was just like, how could God take away the one person that was so important to me? And so I remember going into, like, a metaphysical store, and I was, like, seeing all these beautiful crystals, and I saw, like, all these different, like, things about chakras, and I was like, what are these chakras? Like, tell me more. And I ended up buying this, like, beautiful clear quartz crystal and this beautiful chakra bracelet, and I wore it every day, and it was like this anchor. It was like this anchor into, like, I've got myself, like, I'm held in some way, shape, or form. And so around the age of 21, I decided that I was going to get the fuck out of my hometown and move across the country. And this was big for me because it was like, it felt like I was finally, like, leaving behind so many things that were just causing me ongoing harm. And I ended up, like, selling everything that I owned. I packed, like, 2 suitcases and moved to Edmonton, Alberta, of all places. And, you know, this period of my life was very interesting because I both found myself and like lost myself at the same time. Almost immediately upon moving there, I got a job working as a server, so I was making like cash every day, and I met this really awesome girlfriend, and we would go out dancing all the time, and I got introduced to the electronic music scene. And this was huge for me because, you know, music was always a really big part of my life. Like dancing, like even in the depths of despair when I was in high school, I was actually most of the time, most weekends, I would go to shows. Like that was like my saving grace. Like I would hang out with like older people, and I would go to punk shows and hardcore shows and metal shows. And even though these people weren't like my like deep rooted friends, like I like at least was like seen somewhat by these like older people that didn't have a fucking clue how young I was, but they like, you know, were interested in being around me. And so music was always like a really, really big part of my life, and I loved to dance. And so when I moved to Edmonton, I start going to all these raves, and I'm just in love with these raves. I'm in love with dubstep. I fucking love bass music, and I just like having the time of my life. But at the same time, I became like super addicted to drugs. And there was probably about like a 6 to 8 month period where I was doing drugs like 5 times a week. And I was drinking a lot, and I wasn't eating well, and I was the passenger of a drunk driving accident, and that was within the first few months of me living there, and it was very scary. And then a couple months later, I got sexually assaulted by a cab driver. Might have even been like a month later. And at the time, I had no idea how to deal with any of this. I didn't know how to talk about it. I didn't know how to get help. I did end up going to the police about the cab driver, and he did end up getting charged and exiled from Canada. He got deported. But aside from that, like, I didn't deal with any of the emotional and psychological issues of these experiences. And I carried them with me, and it contributed to my drug addiction. And it was like, I didn't know how to hold any of what had happened to me as a kid, as a teenager, and now as a young adult. And so I developed a lot of dissociative tendencies. And the summer of living there, I fell in love with, I want to say a man, but a boy. I was 21 and he was 20. And I fell so in love with this person. Like, just, I remember the first time I ever saw him, my whole body was just like, yeah, I want to be with you. And we ended up, becoming a thing. And we loved to party together. We had a lot of fun. We would go to festivals. But that was kind of like our whole relationship. Our whole relationship was like really rooted in like dubstep, dancing, doing drugs, and our like intimate connection. And about 6 to 8 months after dealing with this drug addiction, I remember I was in the shower one day, and it felt like I just couldn't get clean. Like, no matter how much I washed my body, it felt like I just could not fucking get clean. And I had this massive download come in, and I was like, I can't live like this anymore. Like, I cannot keep living like this. It felt like I was like dying from the inside. And so I decided to become sober. And I would still do psychedelics here and there because I psychedelics are, for me, in a different category than the substances that I was doing to escape my pain. But I became sober, and my ex at the time and a lot of my friends were like really addicted to coke and speed. And so it was really lonely. Like, again, I found myself in this like experience of like feeling like the black sheep, feeling like I didn't belong, feeling like there was just like I just couldn't find my place. And all the while like having not dealt with any of the things that I had gone through. And so one day I get picked up from work and my ex, and I go to grab food, and he's like, I have something to tell you. And we lived together, right? And I just knew, I was so in love with him. That's the thing. It was so messed up. I was so in love with him, and he could never love me the way that I needed to be loved. But I was just so deeply in love with him. And he basically was like, yeah, when you go home, my stuff's gone. And it fucking broke my heart. It was probably one of the hardest experiences that I had ever gone through, even with all the things that I've already shared. It was really difficult. But it ended up being a blessing because he wasn't my person. And about a week or two after he broke up with me, I got a phone call. And my dad and I at this point, we're on talking terms. We're connected again in some way. We started rekindling our connection around the age of 16, 17 for me. But again, we're kind of friends. We hang out sometimes, but we're friends. And my dad's like, hey, I think I have a job opportunity for you in Kelowna, BC. Would you be interested? And I was like, yeah. And I start crying. I'm like, Mike broke up with me. I need to get the fuck out of Edmonton. I can't live here anymore. So he flies me to Kelowna. I fall in love, and I move there a month later. And this is where the story starts to wrap into what you're gonna see, what you see in front of you now. So I moved to Kelowna, and I fucking love it. I'm like, this place is amazing. And I basically I work for a naturopathic medicine company selling naturopathic medicine, bottling essential oils on the weekend. I end up working for my dad a little bit, and then simultaneously to that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to start going to the gym again. I know how important movement is to me. I need to start exercising. So I go to the gym, realize I need a personal trainer. And I'm really aware of how paycheck to paycheck I'm living. I was in so much debt. I had really fucked up my credit because of when I left home at such a young age. I went and took out a bunch of loans from all these different cash places, and I was just very much in debt, very much not I was not in right relationship with money at the time, let me tell you. But anyways, I was I know that I need to work with this personal trainer, and not doing it isn't an option. So I'm working full time during the day, and I ended up getting a job cleaning the gym at night. So I would clean the gym at night so I could pay for personal training. And I remember working there, and every night that I'd take out the garbage, I'd walk through this little mall that the gym was in, and everything would be closed, but I would walk through the mall, and I would always see this travel agent office, and then I'd see this passport office. And this was my manifesting experience. I was okay, one day I'm gonna be so free that I can travel the world. And I'd visualize myself as I was walking to take the garbage out. I'd visualize myself going on trips and living this free-based lifestyle. And so, yeah, I'm working all these different sales and marketing jobs for many years. And one day I'm in my personal trainer's office, and she's talking to me about something, and this guy comes in, and he's like, oh, it's my last day, Jill. I'm leaving. And I just had this like intuitive hit to be like, what job does he have? And she's like, oh, he's a fitness advisor. And I was like, I just like felt like, oh my God, I need to do that job. Like that is what I need to do. So I like hounded the owner, or not the owner, the general manager of the gym. And I was like, I can do this job. And she was like, it's a really hard job. Like, are you sure? I was like, yes, like I can do this. And it was the first time that I saw myself coaching, and I was really fucking good at it. Like so good at it. Like I just loved it. I was coaching people around their health and fitness goals. I was setting them up with like gym memberships and personal training, and we would have these like really deep conversations. And I was just so in love with it. And I did so well that I ended up becoming one of the top 500 employees in the whole company. This is the biggest gym corporation in all of Canada. Like I got to go to Toronto and to an awards ceremony, and like I was just really good at this. And all the while I'm still like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with my life? Like I thought about going to become a psychologist. I thought about becoming a therapist, and I was like, nah, like that's not it. And one day I get introduced to this man, and he's a life coach. And I'm like, what the fuck is life coaching? Tell me more. So he takes me out for a coffee, and it was like, holy shit, this is the thing. Oh my gosh. Like, how did I not know that this was a thing? Like my whole body was just like, yes, like this is what I'm supposed to do. And again, I had already been coaching. I was already doing it, but for some reason it didn't occur to me that I could do that by myself and have my own business and be this person that I am today. And again, I'm working in the health and fitness industry. And so I initially am like, okay, like I like movement saved my life. Fitness saved my life. Like I want to help people in that way. So I initially was like, okay, I'm going to become a health coach and a personal trainer. And it was like very soon after, like it was at the end of 2017 that I enrolled. Like I was like, okay, I want to be a coach. And I found this coaching certification program where I could become a holistic health coach and a life coach. I enrolled into it, and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is what I'm supposed to do. And y'all, nothing brings me more joy than helping people. Like coaching and leadership and facilitating is literally the way that I express my purpose in the world. Like this isn't just work to me. Like this is my fucking soul calling. And I start going through this education, and I just realized like, oh my gosh, like I am meant to do this in the world. Like I'm meant to be big and bold and brilliant, and I'm meant to take up space. And it was through this certification program that I also started to like really look at my own stuff, to really start to acknowledge the pain of my past, to really acknowledge the trauma, to really start to feel it and be with it. And around the same time that I enrolled into this this certification, I met my husband. And I won't go into our love story. I'll save that for another day because that would take me a whole other 20 minutes. And we only got like 20 more minutes to go here. And he helped me connect with myself in ways that like he's a fucking earth angel. Like Justin is an earth angel, and I truly believe he was gifted to me in this lifetime because he has supported me in meeting myself and coming home to myself in ways that words could never fully encapsulate. And so I'm in year one of my business. I'm working with practice clients. I'm also still working full time at the gym. And life is like starting to feel like, okay, I think I'm starting to get what I'm here to do and how I'm supposed to take up space in the world. And then 2019 rolls around, and I'm like, I need to get the fuck out of the fitness industry. I started to really fall in love with subconscious healing and embodiment work and mindset work. And so I went from being a holistic health coach and a life coach. Now I was like, okay, I'm like a mindset coach. I am an embodiment, like energy coach. And all the while, like I'm also dealing with so much of my own stuff. Like so much was coming up for me because as you listen to the first part of this story, there was so much that happened that I didn't deal with. And here's what I believe. I believe that your business is one big fucking spiritual awakening, and it's a big old mirror for the parts of you that long to be seen. So the things that you experience in your past become very, very loud and very clear when you start your business. And so all of those memories of all of those people who didn't want me to be alive, who like literally bullied me so badly that the cops had to get involved, all of a sudden now I'm being visible online and I'm sharing my words, and all of that came up for me to really fucking feel and heal and alchemize. And so again, year one of my business, I didn't make any money. Year two, I made like $6,000, and that was actually the year that I went full time in my business. I was able to leave my job because I made the decision to go all in. Like I was like, I need to get out of here for my mental health. I need to like be full time here. And it was so wild because then 2020 rolled around, and like 3 months into the year, the world shut down. And I was like, nah, like this is going to be my first 6-figure year. I can fucking do this. And I was so devoted, and I had so much devotion, like so much focus. And I was like continuing to educate myself. I enrolled into like another certification program to learn NLP. And it was a wild year. Like 2020 was intense, obviously. I don't think it was not intense for anybody, right? And it ended up being my first 6-figure year. And then 2021 rolled around, and I enrolled into another certification program and became a trauma-informed hypnotherapist, NLP practitioner, EFT practitioner, time techniques practitioner. And 2021 was wild as well. It was like there's so many pieces, but I really want to get to kind of like the head of this story here. And then this year was one of the biggest years of my life. At the beginning of the year, we manifested our house. I had a life-changing mushroom therapy session. I had a breast reduction surgery. And I've just been brought to the depths of my healing and really finding myself again this year. At the beginning of this year, I started my pre-study for my year-long breathwork facilitator training that I'm in. And so the past, I guess it's been 8 months now, I've been studying breathwork and the body. And I got married in the summertime this year. And it's just been this wild, beautiful journey. And this year is the year that I like really came home to myself. And one of the biggest pieces that have been so supportive of like me finding my voice and finding myself have been movement, embodiment work, subconscious healing through things such as hypnosis, breath work, really coming back to the body as this like anchor, as this beautiful, beautiful anchor to like really support what we're here to do in the world. And it's so interesting because when I think back to all of the things that I've experienced, and again, there's so many pieces that I haven't shared because it would take forever to even like go there, but I believe so deeply that everything that I've experienced has really brought me to this beautiful altar of my life to be able to facilitate and support people to the depths in which I do, because I have taken myself and I continue to take myself deep, 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 because I truly believe that we can only take people as deep as we're willing to take ourselves. And the level of compassion and care and just love that I have for supporting people, it's no surprise to me after all of the things that I've gone through. And then one other breath, there could have been a totally different road that I took based on all the things that I experienced. It could have been so easy for me to completely lose myself and not return, And what I know to be true is that through devotion and discipline and knowing that like discomfort doesn't mean you're unsafe, and being able to be willing to just like really go for it all despite the doubt and the fear, like it'll lead you places beyond your wildest dreams. And I'm a living, breathing, moving prayer of what's fucking possible when you take radical self-responsibility of your healing, your liberation, and your pleasure, and to really return back to this deep sense of like self and support within who you are. And, you know, in this chapter of my work, I just feel so deeply honored and grateful for the people I get to work with and the people I get to serve. And like I said before, like this isn't just work to me. Like this is a vessel for my deepest calling and my deepest purpose. And I'm so excited for what this next chapter holds, because through all this deep work that I've done within myself and continue to do through, you know, therapy and breath work and embodiment work and, you know, different subconscious work, like I am consistently changing my life over and over and over again. And I just feel like, you know, when you can really be so deeply rooted in your story and why you do what you do and who you are from this like embodied level, and that's the place you move from, people feel that. People can just sense that deeply within you. And I know that that's why people tell me all of the time that the work that we do together is life-changing, and that they've never experienced spaces like the spaces that I facilitate. And it's not because I'm better than anybody else. It's not because I'm some secret fucking sauce. Like, absolutely not. It's just that I know that I'm exceptional at what I do. I'm really, really good at it because I'm so devoted to this craft. Like, I'm so devoted to being the type of leader that I know that I desire to interact with in the world. And I think this is so important. I don't believe that I get anybody anything. I don't believe that I am some mystical fucking healer. I believe that you heal yourself, that you are the medicine, that you are the magic, that you are the catalyst to all that you wish to create in the world. And when you continually allow yourself to connect to your essence, to your truth, to remember your wholeness. God, one of my biggest missions in this lifetime is to support people in remembering their wholeness and the fullness of their being. And yeah, like sure, there are lots of things that people experience when they work with me, and there's a wide range of experiences because the results people create are very dependent on who they are as an individual, and there's not just like one way that things unfold. But I do believe that, you know, the beautiful amounts of money and the success and the global impact that people create that I get to work with, like it happens because they feel themselves, they see themselves, they learn to liberate their expression, they learn to trust who they are and move through life from a place of fulfillment, really knowing how brilliant they are. And in this, you know, I one of the things that I want to really share as well is part of why I've shared these things today is because I want you to feel into your own unique expression, your own unique story, and how all of these different pieces of the puzzle have helped you get to where you are today. And, you know, in regards to a lot of the things that I shared about my childhood and adolescent years, you know, when people have asked me, you know, how have you gone through all of that and you still show up and you're so bold in your expression and you're really unapologetic, and I tell people, you know, it's been this ongoing practice of unclogging my throat chakra. It's been this ongoing practice of remembering my wholeness, remembering that life creates through me, remembering that I'm here for a fucking reason, remembering that all of the things that have transpired hurt and were awful, but I am not a victim in my life. I am the fucking victor of my story, and I am going to continue to thrive. I'm going to continue to expand and create magic in the world because that's why I'm here. That's what I'm here to do. And it's such a gift to be able to share that with people. It's such a gift to be able to look at all of these different pieces that challenged me and hurt me, and to be able to like be the fucking lotus blossoming out of the mud and being like, I am here and I am here to stay, and it's my time and it's your time, and we get to rise together, eye to eye, heart to heart, soul to soul. And one of the reasons I always say together we soar is because we're so deeply connected beyond what we can possibly imagine. And I just feel so full of love at the thought of where we all get to go when we remember to hold and embrace the full spectrum of our humanity, to express our multidimensional, multifaceted brilliance, when we lead from this place of being deeply embodied in our work and knowing that what we have to say matters, and knowing that the world is better off because you're in it. And although not everybody may understand you and not everybody's gonna like you, and maybe you will fuck up sometimes, I think it's so important to remember that you would never be gifted a vision that you can't fulfill. And like God, the universe, the creator, whatever word resonates, placed that vision on the altar of your heart for a reason. And so I really believe in the potency of alchemy. I really believe in the potency of meeting your edges and befriending discomfort and having the self-discipline to know that you are capable beyond measure, that you are held beyond measure. And I really feel like in this next iteration of my business, you know, so much of the work that I'm here to do is so rooted in the body and the subconscious, and really helping people again come back home to themselves and really be this full expression of their fullness and their wholeness. And I think one of the reasons why this is so dear to me is because I had to pull myself out from the depths of despair to be where I am today. There was a part of my timeline where I didn't even think I'd be alive right now, and I'm here and I'm living and I'm breathing, and I give a fuck. I really care. And I think that the more we can be anchored into our why, like, why do I get up every day to do what I do? Why do I lead in this business? Why do I support people? Why do I do this? And to really hold that at the forefront of your heart, and to make moves from that place, and to know that, yeah, you are really the one that gets to do this. And to like fucking believe so deeply that you get to do this. That the supportive energy that created all that is like, you're a part of that. You're an extension of that. You are not separate from love. You are not separate from abundance. You are love and abundance in the expression of human form. Life creates through you. And the more you can remember to open your heart to that, to learn how to hold the wide range of sensations that happen as you grow as a human. You're not here to out-heal your humanity. You're here to be in your humanity. You're here to be with it, to move with it, to flow with it, to grow with it. And as someone like myself who has, again, really changed my life, I just believe so deeply that we are so much more capable than we can ever possibly imagine, that we could ever possibly know. I mean, if I could go back in time and hug 14, 15-year-old Rachael and wrap my arms around her and tell her like, yo, dude, you are fucking brilliant. And one day the very things that you don't want to be alive for are going to be a part of your story, and you're going to change the trajectory of your life. You're going to create spaces where people remember who they are. You are going to get comments from people that tell you that you've helped me change my life. I've even had people tell me that I've helped them save their life. Like, can you imagine if I gave up? And that's why I want to just reflect back to you, like the moments where it feels challenging or it feels hard, or you want to throw in the towel, get bigger, get louder, get bolder, because you're here for a fucking reason. And the world needs you. And so, my friends, I love you. And I'm so grateful to share this space with you. I'm so excited to continue to grow with you. I'm so excited to continue to flourish with you. I'm so excited to continue to expand with you. When I think back to this beautiful journey and I'm sitting here in my beautiful house and I'm married and I have a multiple 6-figure brand and I'm healthy and I'm well and I'm vibrant and I'm just like, all of this happened because I kept saying yes to life. I kept saying yes to my intuitive nudges. I kept saying yes even when it made no fucking sense. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for witnessing. Thank you for sharing your heart and space with me. I love you. I'm grateful for you. And I'm so damn stoked about where we get to continue to go together. Mwah! I'm so deeply honored and grateful to share this beautiful space with you. If you enjoyed today's episode, I'd love for you to leave us a 5-star review so we can continue to reach more incredible humans all around the world just like you. Make sure to hit that subscribe or follow button and feel free to screenshot this episode and tag me in your stories on Instagram so that we can connect. I hope that you have an amazing rest of your day and I will connect with you next week.